Well, welcome to another lesson titled How to Accurately Describe a Criminal Suspect. So you might be wondering, is there really a right way or a wrong way to describe a suspect? The answer is absolutely. Here's what I mean. Introducing the most popular criminal suspect in the entire United States. His name, some guy. Have you met him before? Nothing is more frustrating for a police officer or a dispatcher than to hear these words from a victim or a witness. Some guy just shot my friend and he's running away. Some guy does not help the police figure out who they're trying to catch. A fast, accurate description from a victim or a witness of a crime is the very best way for law enforcement to catch a suspect. They need your help. Here's how you can help them. So here's how we catch the bad guys. First, remain calm. There's nothing more important than getting the words out and pronounced where somebody can understand you. Provide specific details. We'll get into that in just a second. Try to focus on remembering exactly what you observed. This will be helpful. So here's some details you should know. You should know a clothing description. What were they wearing? What type of shirt? What color pants? Were they wearing a hat, etc.? Maybe even the type of shoes would be helpful. You should know an approximate age of the suspect. Is it a teenager? Maybe somebody in their mid-30s, a senior citizen. You should know the race of the suspect. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, etc. You should try to remember some distinguishing features of the suspect. Did they have a tattoo on their arm? Did they have a beard? Were they wearing sunglasses? Vehicle description, extremely important when you're talking about the make and model, color, of course, license plate if possible. The direction of travel. Which way was the car going when you saw the suspect leaving? North, south, towards a landmark? Be as specific as possible. So here's a great form to remember some of the details about a suspect. And this basically gives you a reminder of what we just covered: race, gender, height, weight, complexion, tattoos, clothing logos, headwear, shirt, jacket, pants, shoes, jewelry, glasses. Were they carrying a backpack or a bag? Facial hair. This is an interesting little guide there, a visual guide. We're going to get into that more in a later lesson. But this form can really help you remember some of the details. So speaking of remembering the details, let's practice a little bit. So what I'm going to do is have you take a look at an alleged robbery suspect in the next slide. And this is just to get your feet wet and test your memory skills. Okay? Let's see how you do. Ready? Here's your suspect. Okay, I know that wasn't very long, but let's see what you can recall. Was the suspect wearing glasses? Did he have any tattoos showing that were visible? Was he wearing jewelry or a watch? Did he have facial hair? If so, what type? Was he wearing gloves? Was he wearing a hat or some type of head cover? What was the color and style of his shirt? Write down these answers as quickly as you can, and let's see how you did. I'll give you just a minute. Take a few notes. All right, here we go. Glasses, yes, he was wearing white sunglasses. Tattoos, none showing. Jewelry, again, none showing. Facial hair, yes. A beard, slight mustache. Gloves, yes, looks like he has on latex gloves on both hands. Wearing some type of beanie over his head. His shirt had a flag or a patriotic symbol, and it was white in color. And he was wearing a dark blue or black jacket. And he did have a firearm tucked into his front waistband. So, how did you do? Well, be honest with yourself, and this is how you're going to remember to describe a suspect in the future. You can make a difference. Take the time to notice details when you're in public and you witness a crime. Keep a small notebook handy. This is invaluable when you need to write down details, like a license plate or description. Practice testing your memory. The exercise we just completed is a good tool to use for doing that again in the future. So give yourself credit for completing this lesson. Nice job. And we'll see you on the next one. Well, welcome to this lesson titled Lost and Found Property, a Security Officer's Guide. Since security officers are routinely labeled as honest and trustworthy, they're usually approached by the general public when someone is reporting lost or found property. It's common sense. Somebody sees someone they trust in a uniform, they're going to submit that property to that person. So for these reasons, security officers should have a solid game plan regarding lost and found property. So let's review some key points of a good lost and found program. Many times during the course of your post assignment, it's not uncommon for you or someone else to discover lost or misplaced property left behind from customers, vendors, and even service providers. Now, based on your post assignment, these items may vary from a child's favorite toy to a simple set of car keys to a large bank deposit. Lost and found property may include, but is not limited to, the following items: cash money, wallet, a purse, a backpack, a driver's license or an ID card, social security card, checks, credit and debit cards, even gift cards, jewelry to include watches, bracelets, a necklace, a pair of earrings, a cell phone or a smartphone, or other electronic devices like an iPad or a tablet, eyeglasses, sunglasses, etc., etc. We can go on and on, but I think you get the point. These are some of the most common items that are left behind by many people. And in today's world, it's not uncommon for people to accidentally leave behind these types of items in retail stores, gas stations, schools, government buildings, airports, etc. A common theme involves the person backtracking their movements throughout that day, maybe to try and find their lost or misplaced items. So if this scenario brings itself into your field of play, this is where you can help. So as a general rule, security officers should always report lost and found property to their supervisor, to the client, based on your assignment. Ideally, you should also photograph any found property and report it to a supervisor as soon as possible in order to keep you accountable. Let's talk about some good practices to keep you out of trouble with lost and found property. Cash money. Now, many times cash money is lost inside of a wallet, a purse, or even a bank deposit bag. If found, you should always take the money and count it in the presence of another coworker or a trusted person, and then document the amount of money found in that purse or wallet. If the wallet's empty, you document that as well. That could become important later on. So if the cash has not been claimed within 7 days of being found, you should contact your local law enforcement agency and then release the money to their custody. Try to obtain an incident or a case file report number from the responding agency. Then, if someone were to return to claim that money, you can refer them to the local law enforcement agency that took custody of it. Checks, debit cards, credit cards, gift cards. If found, these items should be placed in a secured location for 7 days. This gives a person the opportunity to backtrack and possibly come and return or recover their lost property. If these cards have not been claimed within 7 days, place them in an envelope and seal it and store it in a safe location, or you may even cut the cards in half and throw them out. Um, Trying to contact the issuing bank on a lost card, the bank will probably advise you just to cut the card in half and dispose of it anyway. 99% of the time when somebody loses a debit card or a credit card, they contact their bank right away and then they are issued new cards. So that's a common disposition. Narcotics, contraband, hypodermic needles, drug paraphernalia. Listen up, this is an important topic. If these items are ever found, you should always photograph these items and immediately place them in an envelope and seal it. Now, remember not to touch these items with your bare hands. Use an item maybe to place it inside an envelope or a pair of latex gloves. You don't want anything to be absorbed into your skin. And then you should always notify your immediate supervisor and contact your local law enforcement agency to release these items to them. Never, ever openly store these items on your post or in your posse box or in the pocket of your shirt. And of course, never transport these types of items to your corporate office or to another person in a vehicle or on your person. Because what's going to happen, your luck, if an officer pulls you over when you're in the possession of a narcotic, do you really think he's going to believe you when you say, "That's not mine"? I don't think that's going to fly. They've heard that 100 times. Don't put yourself in that position. So lost phones, here's a cool tip. If you find a lost cell phone, call this toll-free number with the phone that you find, and you'll be able to obtain the number of that cell phone. This can help you obviously verify the owner of the cell phone if they were to return and claim it. And that number you can use to do that is 1-800-444-4444. Very simple to remember, and it works on every time on an active phone. Very cool tip. All right, I'm going to give you a lost and found scenario. This is a real life scenario that happened, and I want to see how you would handle this situation. Okay, let's imagine that you found a lost or abandoned backpack and on a property or on a post that you were working, and you recover the backpack, you looked inside, there's no ID, there's nothing that says who it belongs to, but you did find a handgun and a stack of $100 bills inside the backpack. What should you do in this scenario? Now, would you return the property to someone who claims that they lost it with or without ID? Would you return it to someone claiming to be a police officer? The guy approaches you, he says, "Hey, I lost my backpack, I'm a cop, here's my ID, give it back to me." Would you release it to him? Or would you call a local law enforcement agency and have them investigate further? Now think about it for a minute. What would be the best answer in this scenario? Well, if you ask me, I would choose number 3. Call your local law enforcement agency and let them take custody of that backpack and that firearm and that cash and let them investigate it further. You never know if a person claiming to be an officer really has a valid ID, or if a person claiming that backpack maybe just robbed a bank. You really don't know. So under those circumstances, call your local law enforcement agency, let them handle that situation. Recently, here's another scenario I was involved with recently involving a large amount of found money. The security officer assigned to this particular location actually found a brick of cash wrapped in aluminum foil behind a toilet in a public restroom. Now, the officer did the right thing, and he immediately counted the money with another supervisor in his presence, and it totaled $8,000 in cash. Again, he did the right thing. He turned the money over to law enforcement, and the victim soon returned to the location looking for his $8,000. The officer claimed that he turned it into the law enforcement agency, and as luck would have it, further investigation from law enforcement revealed that it actually was drug money, and the victim was later arrested. In this scenario, the officer was rewarded for doing the right thing. So good job on his part. And something, that you always want to keep in mind, temptation is always present when you find something worth value, whether it's cash, jewelry, a cell phone. It never fails that there's temptation just for a split second, even for you to keep that item, and nobody's going to know the difference. It's not worth it. It's not worth your integrity. It's not worth your reputation, and it's not worth your career. And I'll give you one more example. A security officer found a cell phone at another location that I was involved with recently. And instead of turning in the phone right away, she actually took the phone home with her. She used the phone for 3 days. She took selfies of her and her family. She even took one of her in her uniform, believe it or not. And then she used it for social media, for texting other people. And then on the 4th day, after using the phone, running down the battery, she turned it in to the client and said she found it in the parking lot. Now, obviously, that was not the right thing to do. And it turns out the victim of the lost phone reported it, found the social media sites that the officer used, found the selfies posted to an account, and actually that security officer was terminated the next day. So again, not worth your integrity, not worth your career. So in conclusion, even if your employer doesn't have a clear policy regarding lost and found, you now have the appropriate mental guidelines from this lesson to help you stay consistent with the way you handle lost and found property. And remember, following this policy will also help you maintain your integrity and your professionalism. So I caution you, ignore these guidelines at your own risk. Again, your integrity is not worth the risk. So that concludes this lesson, and we'll see you on the next one. Well, welcome to this lesson titled Missing Child Alert, the Security Officer's Role. Missing children in America is really an epidemic. In 2013, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reported a staggering fact. There were 462,000 entries for missing children under the age of 18 into the FBI's National Crime Information Center, also called NCIC. That is a staggering number for the year 2013. There is a huge problem with missing children. And today, missing and abducted children really is an epidemic. It's not all bad news. There are some success stories that account for literally hundreds of children being rescued or reunited with their families. But this is only due to the quick-acting citizens and tenacious law enforcement work. So let's review the role of the security officer as it relates to a missing child. First, let me tell you the story of Adam Walsh. On July 27th, 1981, 6-year-old Adam Walsh and his mother went to a department store about a mile away from their home to shop for lamps. When they entered the store, Adam saw several children playing video games and asked if he could join them. His mother let him stay while she went to the lamp department, which was only 75 feet away. Because the lamp she wanted was not in stock, she returned in less than 10 minutes to pick up Adam, but could not find him. After looking for Adam on her own for nearly 2 hours, someone finally called the local police department. By the end of that week, thousands of flyers with Adam's photo were distributed in the local area. And sadly, 16 days after Adam disappeared from the store, his body was found and identified. I don't know if you've heard that story before, but it is heartbreaking. But that story sparked a movement in American businesses, and especially the retail industry. The Code Adam program was implemented and named in memory of Adam Walsh and across establishments in the entire country to help ensure that other lost children are recovered as safely and quickly as possible. The Code Adam is a powerful search tool for lost and potentially abducted children. It's currently used by thousands of businesses across the country. Code Adam decals like the one pictured here are posted at the entrances of participating businesses. You may have seen this decal at a local mall or a grocery store or a retail store. And there are, like I said, literally thousands of businesses participating in this program. So let's talk about some action steps when it comes to missing children. The first 3 hours are the most critical time when trying to locate a missing child. Now, the murder of an abducted child is rare, and an estimated 100 cases in which abducted children are murdered occur in the U.S. each year. A 2006 study indicated that 76% of abducted children who are killed are dead within the first 3 hours of the abduction. So that first 3 hours is crucial. Now, when a customer reports that a child is lost or missing in a store, the security professional should take the following steps. Here's your plan of action. Step 1, act with a sense of urgency. Time is extremely important. If you remember, Adam Walsh's mother didn't call the police until looking for him for 2 hours. By then, it could be too late. Step 2, try to obtain a complete description of the child, including their race, their sex, and their age, their height, their weight, their hair color, the color of their eyes, a clothing description. And one of the most important descriptions you can get is the shoe style and the shoe color. Now, this is one thing that law enforcement officials say, that abductors never usually are prepared to replace the shoes of an abducted child. So this is a good clue to remember. And of course, identify any other things that could be helpful to finding the missing child. Step 3, the person in charge of the location, and that could be the security officer, should immediately assign an employee to each entry and exit door until the child is located, and have all emergency doors and hallways monitored for activity. Step number 4, immediately use the business or store intercom and announce, "We are looking for a lost child," a minimum of 3 times. Again, we are looking for a lost child. The child's description should also be announced, including their race, sex, age, clothing, hair color, and the area of the store they were last seen. And this is an important note as well. Never announce the child's name over the intercom. This could provide a crucial information to the abductor, who may not know the child's name. Step number 5. Available employees should immediately search all areas of the location for the lost child, including sales floor, service departments, restrooms, back rooms, storage areas, mechanical or refrigeration rooms, and of course the parking lots outside, including the rear of the building. Step number 6. If the child is not found within 5 minutes, the police should be notified, of course with the parent or guardian's approval, by calling 911. Step number 7. Use any available CCTV systems to review recorded video pertaining to the incident. Bookmark any video that may be helpful to local law enforcement. Step number 8. If the child is found, an announcement should be made over the intercom that the child has been found and that the missing child alert has been canceled. Do not attempt to move the child from his or her location, because if the child was stranger awareness trained, they technically shouldn't leave with a stranger, and that would include you. Tell the child you're here to help, and then call the parents to the child's location. Do not give information to anyone regarding a lost child incident except to local law enforcement. And then step 10, make sure to document any missing child incident in a detailed report. This would be the only way you could memorialize an incident like this, whether it's good or bad news. The Code Adam program is offered free of charge, and it's easy to use. You can get involved by ordering your own Code Adam kits just by calling the number provided here, 1-800-THE-LOST, or email codeadam@ncmec.org. Order your kit today. You can make a difference in a child's life. This concludes our lesson. We'll see you on the next one. Well, welcome to this lesson titled Verbal Judo, 10 Things You Should Never Ever Say to Anyone. So what is verbal judo? You may have heard the term, maybe you haven't. Verbal judo was created by George Thompson, a former English professor, martial artist, and retired police officer. This is a guy after my own heart. Verbal judo is a philosophy that will turn you into a true communication samurai. Verbal judo is actually an extremely effective communication skill that will teach you how to speak to anybody without causing or escalating conflict. Very, very effective in the field of security. Verbal judo will teach you how to respond, not just react to any situation. There is a difference. And verbal judo gives you solutions for dealing with difficult people who are under the influence of alcohol, drugs, rage, or people that are just plain stupid. And verbal judo teaches many different tactics, but in this particular lesson, we're going to focus on just one sector. And that sector is 10 things you should never say to anyone. Let's get started. Number 1, come here. Now, this command is somewhat threatening. On the surface, it seems appropriate, especially if someone's walking away from you that appears suspicious. But when most suspects can hear those words, it just means run as fast as you can. You know, an alternative might be to say something like, excuse me, but I need to chat with you for a second. Or could you come chat with me for a minute? And if someone asked you that question, you'd probably respond a lot softer. Number 2, because those are the rules. Now, this command would make just about anybody roll up their eyes. If you're actually enforcing rules that exist within your property or that pertain to a particular assignment, then explain those rules so your suspect has a better understanding of why you're enforcing them. For example, if you tell a rowdy skateboarder that you have a no skateboard rule on your property, then you should explain why skateboarding is not allowed due to the potential of injury that can occur when a fast-moving skateboard slams into the ankle of an elderly customer. So if you just continue to repeat, those are the rules, then you'll be judged as insensitive and probably labeled as a real jerk. Number 3, it's none of your business. Wow, this one could be the granddaddy of insults. It's usually used by a frustrated victim or someone with authority, like a security professional, who doesn't want to reveal something confidential. Now, this makes people angry by cutting them off and makes them feel like an outsider. Rather than say it's none of your business, maybe you could say, let me explain the reason why I can't reveal any information. I can't give you that person's home address because I don't have their permission. You certainly understand that, don't you? So you can see the difference, much softer. Number 4, what do you want me to do about it? Well, this question is usually loaded with sarcasm and says you don't want to own up to any responsibility right now. This one's used frequently by inexperienced sales clerks and fast food employees in response to complaints, but it's also been used by security professionals who are at the end of their rope. I love what one veteran law enforcement officer says. He says, when you use this reply, you can count on 2 problems. The problem you started with and then the new one that you created by avoiding any responsibility. A better choice might be to offer some help and work toward a solution with your suspect. For example, if someone says, I can't go to jail, I got to pick up my kids from school. Well, work on assisting that suspect to ease their mind a little bit, and then you've done all you can do. Number 5, calm down. Now, this is a tough one because it's one I've used many times, and many times to no avail. If you've ever tried this one on your friends or family, you know that it really doesn't work very well. Telling someone to calm down is basically saying they have no reason to get upset in the first place. Most people interpret this command as a criticism of their behavior. And then you have the original problem in addition to them trying to defend their reaction to you. You know, you might try a gentle touch or telling someone, you know what, it's going to be okay. Just take a minute and talk. Let's go. Number 6, what's your problem? Now, this phrase is full of attitude. It says to the other person, we are going to get confrontational right now. The typical reaction to this question is defensive. No surprise. And the biggest problem with this question is actually using the word problem. It makes people feel inferior, like they already made a mistake. A better choice of words might be, what's the matter? How can I help? And it's funny, I'm reflecting on a time when I remember I had a suspect in custody for writing a bad check. And the officer who responded to the call was an arrogant ladies' man. He was just a player who thought he was God's gift to women. What he didn't know is that I knew he had pulled over my girlfriend for speeding a few days earlier and boldly explained that he could make the speeding ticket go away if she just provided him with her phone number and they could possibly go on a date. So, naturally, I recognized his name and his attitude when he arrived. After a few minutes, he sensed my resentment for him, and he looked at me and he said, "What's your problem, big guy?" Well, I wanted to punch him in the face, but instead, I used verbal judo, and I calmly said, "I'll tell you my problem. You wanted me to be honest? You tried to pick up my girlfriend last week, and when she wasn't interested in you, you gave her the speeding ticket as punishment." Well, after hearing that unexpected response, he couldn't get back in his patrol car fast enough. Funny story. Number 7, you never or you always. Now, when you tell someone he or she never listens to you or never follows the letter of the law, then they'll almost certainly remind you that they have, or they will become spiteful trying to prove you wrong. You know, accusatory generalizations are usually wrong. When someone tells you that, they give you a hard time. Explaining specific instances might be helpful in this situation. You know, rarely you'll have someone agree with your accusations when you use words like always and never. Number 8, I'm not going to say this again. Well, obviously, this statement almost always traps you the moment you say it. Why? Because you know you're going to say it again and again. And even if you're not going to repeat yourself, then you're left with one other option. You got to take action. And that usually means going to the ground, fisticuffs. Don't box yourself in. Try not to use this statement. Number 9, I'm doing this for your own good. Now, nobody listens to this one or believes it. The standard reply is something like, "Oh yeah, sure you are, jerk." You know, one of the things that you might try to help improve a situation like this is offer some specific details about what you're going to do and why you're doing it. When you show your suspect what you're doing and explain it, it makes sense. For example, I'm going to call the fire department to respond to pick you up and call you an ambulance. Because if you stay out here all night, you might even die without some shelter in this cold weather. I think when you explain it that way, it's a lot softer and people understand it. And number 10, why don't you just be reasonable? You know, basically you're inviting conflict when you ask this assumptive question. A better option would probably be, "Let me see if I understand your position." And then you'd repeat it back to them, and that person feels that you're supportive, and the approach absorbs the tension and takes it away from the conversation. So there you have it. There's 10 very specific examples of how you can cut out the fighting words from your vocabulary and gain voluntary compliance through empathy and persuasion. So I challenge you to work on eliminating these 10 phrases in the course of your duties, and you'll definitely be on your way to becoming a communication samurai. This concludes our lesson on verbal judo. We'll see you in the next one.